Okay, well, Mantis was founded in 2000, and it really started back in 1990 when my father, Adrian Gardiner, our chairman today, founded a small game reserve called Shamwari. And that was in a tricky time in our country's history, South Africa, only because we were going through apartheid, and it probably wasn't the easiest time to be opening a big wildlife resort. So anyway, we pulled it off. The apartheid regime collapsed, and the new South Africa was born. And in 1992, we opened our doors. 95, the Rugby World Cup happened in South Africa, and the floodgates to tourism opened, and South Africa was on the map. And so our journey into hospitality began all those years ago. We built up a portfolio of hotels. So we had a hotel in Cape Town and Johannesburg, and gradually this portfolio grew. And in 2000, we recognized and realized that the timing was good to actually umbrella this group, and we came up with the name Mantis. So very quickly, the acronym for Mantis is man and nature together is sustainable. And with that DNA runs right through our group today. Whether it be a boutique hotel or an eco lodge project that we take on around the world today, we try and stick with that sort of ethos and vision for that or a particular property. That's right. When we formed Mantis, everybody said to us, "Wow, you guys have got the bucket list of things to do in Africa." It was gorilla trekking in Rwanda, the big five on safari in South Africa, wine in Cape Town and Stellenbosch, shark cage diving, and all kinds of great things that you'd really tick off on any bucket list. And that sort of sparked a thought in our team's mind. Actually, well, why don't we go and seek out things around the world that aren't too dissimilar to what we do in South Africa in the eco-lodge space? So we went on a journey to Australia, and we looked at Patagonia, and we looked at Canada, and as far afield as the North Pole, Sweden. And so we approached the various owners of these unique properties out there and persuaded them to join our eclectic collection of bucket list properties. And so today we have these strategic alliances around the world. So we own and we operate hotels ourselves, and then we also operate on behalf of owners, and then we have this vast array of strategic alliances with these eco lodges around the world. You talk about 7 continents, so obviously the 6 were easy to conquer, and the 7th became a bit of a challenge because there is nothing on Antarctica. However, a British friend of mine set up a camp. It's called White Desert, and it's only open for 2 or 3 months of the year. He's got his own airstrip down there, and you literally fly from Cape Town due south to Antarctica, and you spend up to a week on the ice, exploring the penguins, the ice caves. You climb mountains that have never been climbed by man before, and you can name that mountain. I mean, it's so unique, a very, very special place. So that's the collection today in a nutshell. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, there are obviously several big players out there today, and the Marriotts, the Hiltons, and obviously we all heard about Accor over the years. And they approached us. We got a knock on the door, and they said, "Listen, we're very keen to get into South Africa in a big way and sub-Saharan Africa. We've sort of nailed the French-speaking countries like Morocco and the others, and done that very successfully. But this is the next chapter for Accor." And so they approached us and said, "We'd like to acquire a share in your business." And we ended up doing a JV with them. And, for them it wasn't just about the catapult into Africa, into sub-Saharan Africa. It was also about buying into our eco DNA and the conservation side of our group, because we, from those early days of Shamwari, have really adapted that and grown that. And the name Mantis is now synonymous with conservation in the hospitality space. So I think they certainly wanted to invest in that, and as a result, hopefully take our eco DNA around the world, and we start looking at different interesting projects in these far reaches. So those are the reasons. And today we're only about 3 months into the integration. The deal was signed 3 months ago, but for us and for us jointly now as a family and as part of the Accor family is to take the conservation side of this very seriously. And together we've formed the Conservation Community Fund Africa organization in association with three different NGOs, Tusk in the UK being one of them, African Parks in Africa being the second, and then the third is a South African organization called the Wilderness Foundation, which my father's been very involved with for the last 20 years. And it's for them to identify projects throughout Africa and for us to support them as a Mantis Accor and fund them and make sure that they meet their KPIs and really start delivering and repairing, the damage that's been caused to certainly to the conservation world, and just support the communities that live side by side. So it's going to be an interesting journey, and it's so nice to have kicked off our relationship with that because they're taking it very seriously like we have been for so long. Yeah, well, the Devonshire Club is great. It's a fantastic Liverpool Street hotel, and we've got the Draycott in Chelsea. We actually have three because we've got the little Lord Milner in Ebury Street. But the future is exciting because obviously now that we have this big brother in Accor, their UK office has just been terrific, and they've given us several introductions to hotels that they may not typically have taken on because they were too small, they just didn't fit with them. And so now together we fill this little niche, and some of them are country hotels. Some of them are a little bit distressed, and there's lots of country hotels that have popped up around the country. So we come in with a totally different angle, and it might be food and beverage, and there's several hotel groups that are doing that really successfully. We believe ours is innovation and creation. So rather than just doing the big homestead up, let's look at doing some glamping. Let's look at doing some eco lodges. Let's innovate, and let's create a kids program with adventure attractions and everything else bolted onto that. So and I think that's why we're getting a lot of these calls, because we are so innovative in that space. We have a whole team that's dedicated to creation in that adventure spectrum. So it's going to be an interesting one. I can't talk specifically about some of the projects, but if I could, you'd be so intrigued because there's some really exciting ones that we hope will come to fruition in 2019, and we'll keep you posted obviously on that.